Hi, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Manitoba, where RCMP have provided an update on the death of April Woodhouse from Pinaymootang First Nation. The family has raised concerns over her death that happened on January 31st. RCMP say the 50-year-old was located outside her home in medical distress. Woodhouse was transported to hospital, where she later died. According to the RCMP, an autopsy was conducted last weekend. It confirmed the cause of death was not because of any physical injuries, nor was it due to exposure. The cause of death remains under investigation as RCMP awaits further test results from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. A Winnipeg hotel that is home to some of the city's most vulnerable is set to close down. On Monday, the City of Winnipeg's Property and Development Committee met to decide the fate of the Manwin Hotel. Tyler Shingoose has more.
The Manwin has been targeted for closure by the city and advocates for homeless people for years. The city ordered it closed in 2021 for building and safety code violations, but it remained open. Another order to vacate was issued January 6 of this year with a January 17 deadline. But on January 8th, hotel owner Akim Kambamba appealed that order, saying his tenants would not be able to find affordable housing and should not be evicted in cold weather. Then at Monday's meeting, a majority of the Property and Development Committee members voted against Kambamba's appeal. There's no word yet about where the 12 remaining tenants will be housed. Tyler Shingoose, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
To Dauphin, Manitoba now, where last month some community members were alarmed by an order from the head of the Mountain View School Division to have God Save the King played during morning announcements. In Manitoba, provincial law requires students to stand for God Save the King in schools, but it hasn't been enforced in decades. It was imposed by board chair Jason Greba this January. However, community members challenged the directive, calling it a colonial practice with a negative impact on Indigenous students. The issue went to a school board meeting in mid-January, and a majority of the trustees voted to immediately stop playing the anthem. This isn't the first time the school division has been in trouble. Last year, another trustee had his knuckles rapped for saying in a board meeting that residential schools were good. The Saskatchewan government has issued an overdose alert after 14 overdoses in Saskatoon in just 24 hours. As APTN's Rachel May reports, the city's fire department and frontline workers are urging the public to be aware of the recent spike in overdoses to protect friends, family, and the community.
And I think around last weekend, we started to see a spike. The Saturday, I think we saw 6 or 7 overdoses, and over the whole weekend, yeah, I'm talking 24-hour period, we saw 13, 14 overdoses in that one period.
Since February 1st, Saskatoon Fire has responded to 53 overdoses, including 14 this past weekend. Deputy Fire Chief Rob Hogan says the number of overdoses they've responded to has increased since January 1st, 2025.
I looked back for the month from shift to shift. There hasn't been a shift where we haven't had at least one overdose or more, which is a pretty shocking.
Hogan says the numbers are alarming as they only include incidents the fire department responded to, not those handled by community partners like Prairie Harm Reduction, PHR.
The reason I say this number is alarming because it's a high number for us, but what's the actual number in the community is probably quite a bit higher than what I'm saying.
When overdoses spike, the cause is often unclear as many factors play a part. However, PHR says alerting the public about a potential bad batch could save lives. PHR engagement manager Miranda Deck says there are 2 drugs that are commonly mixed into other substances that can increase overdose risk.
Fentanyl is usually the biggest one. Xylazine is one that's been more frequent over the last year or so.
PHR offers a safe consumption site with free drug testing to identify what's in a specific batch. Despite over 14 overdoses, Deck says they have yet to receive a single sample off the streets for testing. Deck emphasizes that even if samples aren't brought in for testing, it's still crucial to take safety precautions.
There's also testing strips that we hand out or you can get in other places that are a great plan if you're using at home. We also recommend not using alone if you can.
Deck says call 911 if you see someone experiencing an active overdose. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is among those in Washington, D.C. today. She'll join us here after the break. Welcome back. Federal, provincial, and territorial leaders are all in Washington, D.C. today, meeting with business leaders and lawmakers. Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak is also in the U.S. Capitol, meeting with tribal leaders and others. The National Chief is joining us live now from Washington. National Chief, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
Can you tell us why it's important for you to be in Washington now and meeting with tribal leaders and others?
Oh, look, we met with U.S. tribes from with the NCAI, the president, which is equivalent to, of course, the national chief in our country. And it was really nice to see President Mark Macaro this morning again. I know that we'd met a year ago, and I know that NCAI and the Assembly of First Nations do have a working relationship dating back 25 years. And, you just never know how important those relationships are. I know that there's been a lot of cross-border trade since time immemorial amongst First Nations and American tribes, people. There's been trade amongst our people since the beginning of time, and I think this morning was really refreshing. They were so happy that Canadians as First Nations, we were there talking to them, and we invited them to the assembly, the next AFN assembly in July. And we are also going to be establishing a working group with each other leading up to July. And I also reached out to our first First Nations Premier. I lifted him up in front of all the NCAI folks and the tribes, American tribes. And so he had also committed to making sure that we try and host a Canada, US /NCAI /AFN, type of event on Treaty 1 territory when we all meet in July. But I think it's so important that, cross-border trade, like there's just so many uncertainties right now. And I really believe that relationships between leaders, met many chiefs down here this morning, they're just eager to come up. They want to meet Canadian leadership. They want to meet First Nations leadership, First Nations people and communities. And I just think that it's a time to collaborate when, there's all these talk of tariffs, but we never had tariffs like that with each other. We had trade. And so I know that sometimes those discussions aren't always aligned with other levels of government, but I think that it's important that we speak nation to nation.
National Chief, what are some of the concerns you're hearing from First Nations when it comes to trade and border mobility, tariffs?
Oh, certainly. Look, we've been hearing about, people being harassed at the, at the borders the last couple of weeks, and we've been hearing concerns from different leadership. There was a chief in northern Saskatchewan who had many concerns last week. There was another one in Ontario, and I think we've heard the same from our counterparts here in the U.S. That they've experienced the same type of border issues. And so there's just so much to talk about. And then of course there's U.S. The U.S. is such a big part of even, our economies, wild rice, for instance, tobacco trade. There was all these discussions that were had today. And, these things have happened since time immemorial, and, they shouldn't be part of, whatever Canada and the U.S. want to do with each other. First Nations and the tribes here on this side of the medicine line, that we continue our talks and we continue to push and make sure that people recognize that we are sovereign people and that all this land traditionally was Indian land. And I think that it was a starting conversation this morning, really good one. And they're just so thrilled to be coming up to Canada. And I know that there'll be invites coming, of course, for us to visit them in their territories as well.
National Chief, closer to home here, we wanted to talk about child welfare, which of course remains a big issue. Earlier this week, Pinaymootang Anishinaabe Chief Derek Neepanak said he wanted to opt into the discussions on child welfare reform that the Chiefs of Ontario and Anishinaabe Nation are involved in. Do you think individual nations should be able to opt in?
When it comes to Chief Neepanak's statements, I have full respect for Chief Neepanak. And I think he was speaking on behalf of his community, which I absolutely respect. And he is not the only chief that is saying that. The chief is free to engage the government, of course, directly. And he has done it as he has done in the past. He's a very strong leader. With regards to the AFN setting up committees as national chief, I have to follow the resolutions of chiefs in assembly. Chiefs voted for the establishment of a new committee at our last assembly. So we will continue to call for Canada to return to the table on long-term reform. And of course, at the July assembly, so chiefs will be free to propose any ideas that they choose to. And I encourage them to, get their own laws ready, write their own laws for their children and for their families, and don't accept anything less than $47.8 billion when you're reforming the system. There's a ground floor now, and I think First Nations should never accept anything less than that. It should be more and beyond.
National Chief, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you joining us here, and safe travels on your way back from the capital down there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
To other news now, and in the heart of Montreal's busiest tourist neighborhood, dozens of souvenir shops offer a variety of mass-produced trinkets. However, one shop stands out, not only for its authentic Indigenous offerings, but also for its alignment with the Cree Nation's goal of accelerating their economic freedom. Kim Sullivan has the story.
From the storefront, it looks like yet another souvenir shop in Montreal's busiest tourist neighborhood, the Old Port. However, Wachia is much more than a simple boutique.
These are beautiful. What size are these?
Yuishchi's Nation Grand Chief Mandy Galmasti explains that it's also an important investment in the economy and culture of First Nations peoples.
Our intentions are to highlight our culture, create space for other nations to come in and showcase their arts and crafts, and most importantly, to be able to tell the history of the Cree Nation, the capacity of the Cree Nation, and to share the art that we have and celebrate.
Importantly, the Cree Nation owns and doesn't rent the building in which Wachia is located.
One of the initiatives that we have under Cree Nation is an investment group, and we do have a real estate portfolio. I was really pleased when my friend Tammy Beauvais called me and said, there is a boutique up for sale in the Old Port, and she actually was the one who brought me to the location, showed me around, and we decided to embark on having this property be part of our real estate commercial portfolio.
Wachia means hello in
marshy
Cree.
area would be good for ones with legs. Yeah.
And its mission is to greet locals and tourists with authentic crafts directly sourced from EU artists and via the Cree Native Arts and Crafts Association.
Her beadwork is beautiful.
Executive Director Dale Cooper says this not only guarantees an original product, but also fair trade for the producers and artists.
Well, the goal with Wachia was to kind of have an outlet for our artists, who are part of the Cree Native Arts and Crafts Association. So we wanted to kind of showcase their work, right, as well as their cultural teachings that they've learned over centuries.
Justin Heritage is general manager of the store. He guarantees that each piece is unique.
A big part of our store is giving out certificates of authenticity, letting you know exactly which artist you're buying from and which community they're from and when it was made. So this way you know exactly who you're helping and which community you're ultimately helping.
You could wear this inside, you could wear this while you're snowshoeing.
In an ocean of souvenir shops, often with mass-produced trinkets, Grand Chief Galmasty takes pride in offering such authentic products shared via the Cree Native Arts and Crafts Association.
The majority of the material from the store is sourced from this group. It is authentic, it is handmade, and we also have the ability to tell the story from when our hunters harvest the moose, to preparing the hide, to ensuring that that hide gets made into moccasins, that we can tell that story, that it is a full circle economy.
The name Wachaya.
Yeah, Wachia.
Wachia.
Beyond authenticity, Wachia's goal is educating customers about the customs and traditional practices of First Nations peoples.
I was very lucky to have traditional grandparents that lived off the land. They were full-time trappers. Just going to visit them was an adventure in and of itself. It's given me a traditional knowledge that I'm grateful for, and has given me a sense of purpose in my life that I just knew it was my life's mission to kind of pass on this knowledge in any way I can.
We want to make sure that we're educating our customers on cultural appreciation versus appropriation. We have a wonderful team of staff, that can really educate our customers. So we want it to be a very welcoming atmosphere for them. Ask any questions they'd like. We're happy to share our culture.
Further enhancing this transmission of knowledge are exchanges around a tea and craft workshops offered at the store. Wachia is much more than a simple shop. It's a vessel for Indigenous identity.
We want to showcase our culture, our identity, our history. We want to be the storytellers. We want to invite other First Nations to work with us and being able to showcase that there is an Indigenous presence here in Quebec and that we are part of the history.
Kim Sullivan, APTN National News, Montreal.
Time now to take a look at one of this week's web poll questions. We're asking you if you agree with the decision to strip Buffy St. Marie of her Order of Canada. Yes, no, or unsure? You can go to our website, aptnnews.ca, to cast your vote. We've got another mother tongue teaching for you today. That and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. Here's a look at your current conditions. Chilly, minus 24 in Fredericton, 8 below in Halifax. Minus 25 with snow in Kuujjuaq, 20 below and snow in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Minus 14 in Montreal, 16 below in Val-d'Or. Minus 17 in Sault Ste. Marie, 12 below in Ottawa. Sunny and minus 24 in Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout. Minus 31 under sunny skies in God's Lake, 29 below in Norway House. Minus 24 in Winnipeg, minus 32 in Brandon, 34 below in Regina, cloudy and minus 32 in Saskatoon, minus 33 in Uranium City, snow and minus 29 in Stony Rapids. Snow across much of northern Alberta at this time, minus 19 in High Level, 22 below in Fort Chipewyan. Snow and minus 14 in Edmonton, 10 below at this hour in Lethbridge. Plus 1 and sunny in Vancouver, 2 above and sunny in Victoria. Minus 12 in Prince George, 19 below in Dease Lake. Minus 18 in Old Crow and Whitehorse, where there is snow at this hour. Minus 25 in Yellowknife, 26 below in Norman Wells. Minus 26 in Sax Harbor and Pawlatuck, where there is currently snow. Minus 22 with snow in Chesterfield, 31 below and flurries in Baker Lake. Minus 15 in Resolute and Igloolik. The first Indigenous player to be selected in the Australian team, the late Lionel Morgan, was a rugby league trailblazer. And this week he was recognized in the Australia Day Honours list. We get more from our colleagues at NITV.
Reflecting on a life and a legacy that changed Australian sport.
Indigenous people were still classed as flora and fauna, but to be recognised that way and to be picked where, there weren't a lot of Indigenous fellas playing and all that, it was massive because you had to be something special.
And Lionel Morgan was exceptional, becoming the first Indigenous player to represent the Kangaroos back in the 1960s.
And the calibre of the people that he was picked in the sides with, the likes of, Immortals Johnny Raper and Reg Gasnier.
Morgan's memory lives on at the Wynnum Manly Seagulls. He played for the Queensland club between 1959 and 1968.
Lionel's had a wonderful rugby league career here, but he's left a wonderful legacy at our club as well. A record try scorer, first Indigenous Australian player to represent his country.
Lionel had 4 sons who all played rugby league for the Seagulls.
We were more scared of Mum than Dad because he had that leniency where Mum didn't, because she had 4 boys to deal with and he was the 5th one.
Morgan's achievements are now being recognised by the nation, with his name being added to the 2025 Australia Day Honours List.
I was actually blown away because it comes on the back of him getting into the Rugby League Hall of Fame. So that was a prestigious honour in itself.
From a human side of it, the family, I think it's a wonderful accolade for their father, and I'm sure they'll be hugely proud of that.
The former Kangaroo is also being acknowledged for his decades of work in the community.
He was humble. He'd just say, I loved playing rugby league and I loved helping people.
Michael Rennie, NITV News.
It's time for your daily mother tongue teaching with T.R. Wheatley. Today we hear from one of our Hockey Night in Canada in Inuktitut play-by-play hosts. He's here to share the connection between land and language.
Another mother tongue teachings. With me I have Pujut. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Pujut Kusuga from Rankin Inlet, Nunavut.
All right, and you're here today to share a phrase of the day with me.
And that phrase is Nunavut Kadjang Nalak. And that means our land is the most beautiful, peaceful, and serene. And I use that because we spend so much time out on the land. That's where we get our language from. We do our harvesting of animals, some plants, and just spend so much time out there whenever possible. Nunavut Kadjang Nalak. Kadjang Nalak. Nunavut Kadjang Nalak. And again, that means our land is peaceful, beautiful, and serene. I'm a teacher by trade, so I taught Inuktitut in our home community. The connection you build with your elders, your family members, any of your community members, I think is a huge part of a strong community. I've always been very passionate about our language, and it's come from my parents, come from my grandparents and other family members, and they knew the importance of Inuit identity, and it has a lot to do with our language, and to be able to pass it on to young people as well. I think it's such an important part of who we are. I think it's really important to surround yourself with your language from people that you want to learn from, if it's either your partner or your family members and elders. It's so important to have that conversation with elders so that they're passing on their knowledge to you as well. Nunavut Kadjang Nalak.
Thank you for your teachings today, and good luck with your with Hockey Night in Canada.
All right, thank you so much for this time too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pujut. Thanks, TR. That's all the time we have for your first look at the day's news. Creason will be back here at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great afternoon.